For centuries, rumors spread through Europe's grandest palaces of a mirror that didn't just reflect, it watched. We've all heard the stories, from fairy tales like Snow White's magic mirror to playground dares of Bloody Mary. Speak her name 3 times into a mirror, and she will appear. But what most people don't know is that history holds real stories of mirrors said to be cursed. And in France, Queen Marie Antoinette was rumored to own a demon glass. A mirror that not only reflected her image, but showed visions of her tragic end, long before the Revolution. For over 3 centuries, these haunted mirrors weren't just ghost stories. They were documented in journals, in palace records, and in whispered warnings passed down through generations. Some swore the mirrors themselves were gateways, and that once you locked eyes with what stared back, it never truly let you go. And the most chilling question remains: what if one of those mirrors still exists today? Before palaces and ghost tours, mirrors already had a job. They were instruments, not decor, devices, and different cultures used them for very different things. In ancient Greece, mirror divination had a name: catoptromancy, literally mirror seeing. Sources describe an oracle at Patras where a mirror was lowered into a spring to learn a sick person's fate, live or die. Across the Atlantic, the Mexica or Aztec used obsidian mirrors, black volcanic glass polished to a liquid shine. Their war god Tezcatlipoca literally means smoking mirror, and priests used that black surface for scrying, seeking visions and omens. Centuries later, an obsidian mirror of Mexica origin turned up in Elizabethan England in the hands of John Dee, the Queen's scholar, who tried to speak with angels through it. Same object, new court, same idea. The mirror as a portal. In China, the glass plays defense. Bronze mirrors were cast with auspicious beasts and inscriptions and treated as apotropaic, evil-repelling objects. Households still hang bagua mirrors above doors to deflect hostile energy. Folklore even speaks of the demon-revealing mirror, a mirror that shows a spirit's true form. And there's a historical optical trick too, the so-called magic mirrors that throw a hidden pattern onto a wall when hit by sunlight. In the West, mirrors invite things in. In China, they bounce them back out. So 3 very old habits: see through it, see beyond it, or send evil right back where it came from. By the time Europe fills its palaces with looking glasses, the mirror is already carrying baggage. Sometimes a portal, sometimes a shield, always more than just glass. The frame changes from culture to culture, but the rule doesn't. Stare long enough, and a mirror stops behaving like furniture. Mirrors don't just show the living. For centuries, people worried they might hold on to the dead. That's why, when someone died, the first thing covered wasn't the body, it was the mirror. In Victorian Britain, black cloth went over the looking glass the moment death entered the house. The logic: a mirror could trap the soul of the departed on its way out. Forget to cover it, and the spirit might never leave. Imagine getting stuck in a hallway mirror forever. Victorians thought that was a genuine risk. In Ashkenazi Jewish mourning, during the week of Shiva, mirrors are covered, not to stop a soul, but to stop the living. Grievers are meant to focus on prayer, not appearances. Vanity had no place in a house of mourning. Parts of Germany and the Netherlands carried their own twist, a premonition. If you didn't cover the mirrors, the next to see their reflection might be the next to die. The mirror became less of an object and more of an open door with no lock. So whether it was trapping a soul, tempting the living, or predicting another death, one thing stayed constant: in times of mourning, the mirror was never just glass. By the time Europe's aristocrats lined their halls with mirrors, they were hanging something dangerous. Long before Marie Antoinette, royalty already had mirrors with reputations. In Elizabethan England, one man turned mirrors from decoration into instruments: John Dee. Dee was the Queen's personal advisor, mathematician, and, depending on who you asked, the court's astrologer or its sorcerer. In his study at Mortlake, he kept an object that looked like obsidian polished into a black pool. Today, we call it a mirror. Back then, it was a shew-stone, the very one we mentioned earlier that came from Mexico, an Aztec mirror of volcanic glass and used for visions. Dee picked it up in Europe and decided it was his window into heaven. With his assistant, Edward Kelly, Dee sat staring into the mirror, waiting for visions. They claimed angels spoke through it, dictating new alphabets, even a celestial language we now call Enochian. The irony? Dee had once been jailed under Queen Mary I for sorcery. Yet under her sister Elizabeth I, he became trusted enough to chart her coronation date and advise her empire, while peering into a haunted rock. That obsidian mirror still exists. You can see it today in the British Museum. A piece of volcanic glass from Mexico, once on the desk of England's most powerful advisor. A royal court, quite literally, staring into the abyss. If John Dee's mirror whispered to angels, Versailles had a mirror that whispered something far worse. Marie Antoinette, history's favorite symbol of extravagance. The Austrian princess who became the last queen of France, married into Versailles at 14 and lived a life framed by silk, jewels, and constant scrutiny. By the late 1700s, she was infamous, fairly or not, as the queen who told starving peasants to eat cake, a line she may never have actually spoken, but one that sealed her fate in the public imagination. Her real fate, of course, came at the guillotine in 1793. Dragged from the palace to a Paris square, she met her end before a crowd that once adored her at age 37. But in Versailles, long before her downfall, whispers spread that she had already seen her fate. Not in a prophecy, not in a dream, in a mirror. A so-called demon glass that reflected not just her image, but visions of her tragic end. By the late 1780s, France was bankrupt after wars and decades of royal extravagance. She was charged with treason, conspiring with foreign powers and trying to undermine the revolution. In October 1793, after a short trial, she was found guilty. On October 16th, she was sentenced to the guillotine in Paris at age 37. Servants swore the mirror whispered at night, a voice in the corridors of Versailles. They avoided it, convinced the Queen's glass was cursed. Whether it was palace gossip or true belief, the story spread. It's one thing to check for new wrinkles in the morning. It's another to check for the guillotine. As for the legendary cursed mirror tied to Marie Antoinette, some accounts say it was shattered after the revolution. Others say that it was stolen or passed into private collections. But none of those claims have solid provenance, so we may never know what came of it. Versailles was built on reflection. The Hall of Mirrors was a gallery of power. Louis XIV built the Hall of Mirrors as a literal stage of power. The glittering reflections exaggerated the king's image, multiplying him endlessly, a visual message of divine authority. Visitors saw not just one monarch, but a godlike presence reflected dozens of times. In the 17th century, mirrors were luxury objects. Venice controlled mirror-making technology, mercury silvering, and kept it a state secret. When France broke that monopoly, producing mirrors became a national power move. Versailles itself was an advertisement for France's dominance. In courts, mirrors weren't about vanity. They reminded courtiers they were constantly being watched. Your reflection became part of the surveillance culture, reinforcing discipline and conformity to court etiquette. But in the culture of the time, reflection also meant omen. French households, like others across Europe, would veil mirrors in mourning. The fear was simple. A reflection could become an open door. That ritual superstition only sharpened the rumor around Antoinette's mirror. If mirrors could trap souls, maybe they could forecast death. And then, the science nobody in Versailles knew. The mirrors themselves were made with mercury. Venetian craftsmen coated glass with a mercury tin amalgam to make that dazzling shine. Long exposure caused erethism, hallucinations, tremors, paranoia. It's the same syndrome that gave us the phrase, mad as a hatter.
Just a touch of magic for my latest creation.
Hat makers in the 18th and 19th centuries used mercury in felt production and slowly lost their minds. So when palace staff whispered that Versailles mirrors made people see things, they might not have been wrong. The ghosts in the glass could have been chemistry. The ghost in the glass may not have been a spirit at all. It may have been mercury poisoning. So whether it was palace rumor, omen, or toxic chemistry, Versailles proved one thing. When royalty looked in a mirror, they weren't just checking appearances. They were staring down their fate. Not every cursed mirror stayed in one palace. Some traveled. One in particular became known as the Bourbon Mirror. A looking glass passed from one noble house to another, always leaving wreckage in its wake. Wherever it went, scandal followed. A family inheritance dispute. A mistress exposed. A sudden death at court. The mirror became shorthand. If it was up in your hall, something terrible was coming. By the 18th century, whispers called it the royal curse in a frame. It reflected the family's downfall. Think of it as a courtier with perfect memory, sitting silently on the wall. No one could prove the Bourbon Mirror caused anyone's death, but no one wanted to keep it either. It was the kind of inheritance you passed on quickly before it had the chance to look back at you. By the 18th and 19th centuries, cursed mirrors had slipped from court gossip into reality, eyewitness testimony. Nobles spoke about mirrors where the reflection didn't quite match. Eyes that blinked out of sync. Mouths that smirked when the owner stayed still. Reflections that seemed to move independently. And always, there were consequences. Sudden deaths. Spirals into madness. Families who swore their decline began the moment a certain mirror was carried through the door. By the Victorian era, wealthy collectors snatched up antique mirrors, but some refused to keep them in their homes. They'd display them in cabinets or museums, but never in their bedrooms. Too many stories of figures lingering in the reflection. The most consistent detail. A shape, always the same. A shadowy figure that appeared only in the glass, never in the room. It was also the height of spiritism, seances, spirit photography, ghost clubs, and mirrors were the perfect threshold. By then, the demon in the glass wasn't just a rumor. It was an archetype, half superstition, half psychology, and entirely terrifying. For all the folklore and royal rumors, mirrors also mess with us on their own. You don't even need a curse, just your eyes and a little patience. In 2010, psychologist Giovanni Caputo ran a simple experiment. Sit in a dim room and stare into a mirror. After a minute or two, almost everyone saw their reflection start to change. Faces warped, twisted, even morphed into strangers. Some swore they saw monsters staring back. So, why does this happen? It's a cocktail of optical quirks. Troxler fading, when your eyes tune out what doesn't move. Pareidolia, when the brain seeing patterns that aren't there. and sheer expectation. Stare long enough, and your mind starts filling in the blanks. You can even try it yourself. Dim the lights, look straight into your own eyes for a few minutes. See how long it takes before the stranger in the mirror blinks back. That unease is ancient. The idea that your reflection might not be you shows up everywhere. Doppelgangers in folklore, the evil twin that steps out of the glass. Victorians even turned the effect into stagecraft. Using angled glass, theaters created Pepper's ghost illusions, specters that faded in and out before your eyes. It was the prototype for the modern haunted house gag. And the mirror kept its starring role in fiction. Bloody Mary in the bathroom.
Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary.
Snow White's magic mirror on the wall.
Your beauty is great, Queen, but a fairer one I see.
No. Tell me her name.
Dorian Gray's portrait as a twisted form of moral reflection. Always the same theme. The glass doesn't just show you, it judges you. So even without curses, mirrors already feel wrong. Half science, half story. They make the familiar face in the glass look like a stranger, and that's terrifying enough. And it's no coincidence the mirror keeps showing up in pop culture. It followed us into stories, movies, and even children's fairy tales. In Snow White, the Queen's magic mirror isn't a toy. It's a truth teller. She asks who's the fairest, and the mirror answers coldly, consistently, until that truth drives her into a jealous rage.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?
Snow White is the fairest.
The mirror's job is simple. Reflect what you don't want to hear. Jump to urban legend turned horror. In Candyman, the dare is exact. Say his name 5 times into a mirror and he appears. The 2021 sequel doubles down on the idea. He's often seen in reflections, as if the glass is the doorway. A mirror isn't just a surface, it's an invitation. Oculus, which came out in 2013, centers on the Lasser glass, a haunted mirror that warps perception. Siblings Kaylee and Tim try to prove it by filming themselves, only to discover the mirror is already editing reality. Water becomes glass. Apples become light bulbs. Your own eyes lie to you. The terror isn't a monster in the glass. It's that you can't trust what you see. Mirrors from 2008 turns reflections into a weapon. An unseen force acts through mirror images, injuring people in the real world. It's not subtle, it's a thesis. What happens in the reflection can happen to you. In Harry Potter, the mirror of Erist doesn't show truth. It shows your deepest desire. It's irresistible and dangerous because it looks like truth. Stare too long and you disappear into what you want instead of what is. Across all of these, the mirror is shorthand for the thing you're avoiding. Truth, desire, guilt, belief. Sometimes it opens the door, like in Candyman. Sometimes it bends your senses, like in Oculus. Sometimes it just says the part you won't, like in Snow White. And if you think cursed mirrors died with Versailles and Victorian seances, they didn't. The curse is still alive. It just moved online. Search eBay or the UK tabloids and you'll find listings for haunted mirrors. Owners swear they bring bad luck, strange noises, even shadow figures. Most of them are sold cheap, which is either proof the market's flooded or that no one wants to keep one in the house for long. It's the only antique you buy, hoping it comes with a refund and not a roommate. Paranormal investigators keep the tradition going. They set up cameras, EVP recorders, and wait. Some claim to catch flickers in the glass, unexplained movements, or figures appearing behind their reflections. On TikTok and YouTube, a new superstition circulates, covering mirrors at night. Videos warn that uncovered glass invites things in while you sleep. Thousands of comments agree. Whether or not people believe in the demon, the fear clearly isn't gone. Traveling occult exhibitions even showcase cursed mirrors as part of their lineups. Patrons step up, stare, and wait for something to blink back. Which is the whole point. The myth survives because we can't resist testing it ourselves. From palaces to modern homes, from eBay to TikTok, mirrors keep their grip because they're both ordinary and strange. The more you look, the less you trust what you see. From John Dee's obsidian shew-stone to Versailles demon glass, mirrors have always stood close to power. They projected kings and queens 100 times larger than life, yet in the same breath they threatened to trap souls, whisper death, or drive their owners mad. That's the paradox of the mirror. It flatters you, but it also judges you. It promises truth, but it hides lies. For centuries, royalty used mirrors to project control. The people beneath them saw curses. And maybe both were right. Because maybe the demon was never in the glass at all. Maybe it was always in what we feared it would show us. Let me know. Do you think it's just silly superstition, or do you think there's something going on that we can't explain? If you've made it this far, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to join the Mystic Seekers to discover more dark and strange deep dives. Thanks for watching.